Let's pray. Father, we thank you for your word. We thank you for your wisdom. We thank you for your spirit. We ask that you would move among us, teach us what you want us to know. Open our eyes, open our ears, and open our hearts. We want to hear you. We want to know you. We want a closer relationship with you. We thank you and we praise you in Yeshua's name. Amen. All right, we're halfway through today's teaching. We're on Daniel. We were doing 11 last time. We're going to go through the Great War. Let's look at Amos 3:7. Adonai God does nothing without revealing his plan to his servants, the prophets. Revelation 22:6. Then he said to me, these words are true and trustworthy. Adonai, God of the spirit of the prophets, sent his angel to show his servants the things that must happen soon. Isaiah 46:9-10. I am God, there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, from ancient time, what is yet to come. And then finally, Ecclesiastes 3:15. Whatever exists has already been. Whatever will be has already been. But God recalls what has passed. He's telling us the news that we're now, you're going to see it come in the future. Quick review of those dreams we talked about earlier. Nebuchadnezzar's dreams, the statue of gold, silver, bronze, iron, and then a stone that came to crush the statue. Nebuchadnezzar's dream was interpreted, and it was the kingdom of Babylon, Medo-Persia, the Greeks, and then an unidentified, destructive, and divided empire. And then following that was the eternal kingdom that would destroy all the other kingdoms. And then when Daniel was under the leadership of Belshazzar, he had the vision of the four beasts coming up, one of them a lion with eagle's wings, one with a bear devouring flesh, the other was the leopard of 4 heads, then this beast of 10 horns, and it was slain and burned, and then the final eternal kingdom was the Son of Man coming on clouds. And then the other one that he saw, which we have been talking about recently, is the one of the ram and the goat. He saw the vision of the ram with 1 short and 1 long horn, and a male goat with 1 horn, which then became 4 horns. We talked about that in our last session. So we're going to focus in on specific kingdoms so we can see how this all plays out. Daniel 4:7-6. 7-6, that's what my note said. That doesn't make sense. Might be 6-7. These are the visions in my head while I was on my bed. I looked, and behold, there was a tree in the midst of the earth. Its height was enormous. The tree grew large and became strong, and its top reached to heaven. It was visible to the ends of the earth. This was Nebuchadnezzar's dream. And Daniel said to him, here's the interpretation. It's you, king. You have grown great and mighty. Your greatness reaches to heaven. Your authority extends to the end of the earth. And you, king, saw a watcher, a holy one, coming down from heaven and saying, chop down the tree and destroy it. Yet leave a stump with the roots in the ground, the fetters, which are shackles and constraints, made of iron and bronze in the grass of the field. So those fetters, the iron and the bronze, are part of the vision that Nebuchadnezzar saw. And so those roots were still left in the ground. Even though Babylon was chopped down, the roots of Babylon remain. Then we go on with Daniel 7:1-5, and it says, in the first year of King Belshazzar of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions passing through his mind. And behold, the 4 winds of heaven were churning up the great sea. 4 huge beasts came up from the sea, each different from the others. The first was like a lion with eagle's wings. Behold, there before me was another beast, a second one like a bear. It raised itself up on one side, 3 ribs in its mouth and between its teeth, and it was told, "Arise, devour much flesh." So we talked about this earlier. Bears are predators, but they move slowly. So the Persian Empire, with the bear with the 3 ribs in its mouth, those are the 3 major conquests of this slow-moving and growing empire. This was under Cyrus the Great. They conquered Lydia, which is western Turkey, and then Babylon in 539 under Cyrus' son Cambyses, and then in 525 BC they conquered Egypt. Those are the 3 ribs in the bear's mouth, the 3 conquests. And then we know that there's the ram with 1 short and 1 long horn. We're going to take a look at some of that. We see in Daniel 7:6, this is about the leopard. "After that I looked, and behold, there was another like a leopard. On its back had 4 wings, like those of a bird. The beast had 4 heads. It had been given the authority to rule." Leopards are a picture of a fast-moving predator. The motion or the conquest of Alexander the Great was very, very fast-moving. 10 years, that's all it took for him to spread his entire kingdom, from the north to the Black Sea and from Greece all the way to India, east of India. After his death, then his top 4 generals split the kingdom. They were the Macedonian Empire, which was a combination of Greece and Macedonia. There was the Turkish Empire, the Seleucid Empire, which includes Syria, Iran, and farther east, and then the Ptolemaic Empire, which was the lands to the south, and that included Egypt. So there were our 4 kingdoms, and so this was absolutely accurate according to what Daniel saw in his vision. That brings us to the dream of the ram and the goat. That's the Medo-Persians and the Greeks. Daniel 8:3 and 4. "I lifted up my eyes and look, and behold, a ram with 2 horns." This was the Medo-Persian Empire, standing in front of the canal. That's the Ulal Canal, which is in Shushan. The 2 horns were long. One was longer than the other, but the longer one grew up last. I saw the ram charging toward the west, the north, and the south. While I was contemplating this, a male goat, which was the Greek emperor, came from the west, crossing the face of the whole earth without touching the ground. Now the goat had a conspicuous horn between his eyes. He came up to the 2-horned ram that I had seen standing beside the canal, and he charged it with raging strength. So this previous dream, this is again the Greeks striking back at the Medo-Persians. Daniel 8:7-9. "I saw him attacking the ram furiously, striking the ram and shattering his 2 horns. Now the ram was not strong enough to stand against him, so he knocked the ram to the ground and trampled him. The male goat became exceedingly great. As soon as he became mighty, the large horn was broken." So as soon as the Greek Empire became mighty, Alexander the Great ended his career. He was dying, and in place, it says, 4 prominent horns grew up. And again, Ptolemaic Empire, Seleucid, Attalid, and Antigonid empires. So there were the 4 empires, and they went toward the 4 winds of heaven. It says, "Out of one of them," which turned out to be the Seleucid Empire, "came forth a small horn, Antiochus IV, which grew extremely large to the south and the east and toward the beautiful land, Israel." So his kingdom, the Seleucid Empire, was reaching toward Israel and trying to conquer Israel. So we know then Alexander the Great conquered the Medo-Persians. He died. The 4 generals took over. This one, Antiochus IV Epiphanes, is the one who attacked Israel, desecrated the temple, and his name, Epiphanes, was a nickname. It meant God manifested. That's what he thought about himself. I am the manifestation of God. So that's what he called himself. So our meaning for the ram and the goat is explained by the angel that appeared. The ram that you saw with the two horns stands for the kings of Media and Persia. The buck, the male goat, is the king of Greece. The large horn between his eyes is the first king. That is Alexander the Great. The four horns that replace the one that was broken represent four kingdoms that arise from this nation. I've already named those, though not with its power. Now, toward the end of their reign, when the measure of transgressions is completed, a stern-faced king, the master of intrigue, this is Antiochus, will arise. He will cause extraordinary devastation. He will destroy both the powerful and the holy people. He will cause deceit to prosper. He will consider himself superior. He will even stand up against the prince of princes. Yeah, he called himself God, right? Stands up against the prince of princes. Yet he will be broken, but not by human hands. Well, yes, he was broken. He was struck with a tormenting bowel affliction, and then he died. Who struck him? Not by hands. God did it. Did Daniel get his facts straight? Yes, every one of them. Now, there is a document called the Scroll of Antiochus, which has this information in it. It says, "It happened in the days of Antiochus, king of Greece. He was a great and mighty king, a powerful ruler whom all the kings obeyed. He conquered many countries and strong kings, destroyed their castles, setting fire to the palaces and capturing their soldiers. Since the time of Alexander the king, there had never been a king as powerful as him on the other side of the Euphrates River. He built a great city at the edge of the sea as his royal palace, and named it the city of Antiochus, after himself, of course. His general was Bagris. He also built himself a city opposite it. He named it Bagris, after himself. And these are the names until today. In the 23rd year of his reign, which is 213th year since the building of our house of God, he determined to attack Jerusalem." What was Daniel's prophecy? He is going to go toward the beautiful land. And the scroll continues. There he said to his officers, "You know that the Jews of Jerusalem are in our midst. They don't offer sacrifices to our gods. They don't follow our religion. They abandon the rights of the king to follow their own rituals. It does not give honor to the king to leave them on the face of the earth. Now, let us come and ascend against them and annul the covenant that their God made with them." Shabbos, which is celebrating Sabbath, Rosh Chodesh, the new moon, and Bris Milah, the circumcision. They were going to attack the holy people on those three grounds. If you're going to celebrate Shabbat or the new moon, or you're going to get circumcised, it's against the law. We're coming after you. So Daniel 7:25 says this about that king. He will speak words against the Most High and will continually harass the Kedoshim, that's the holy ones, of the Most High, and will try to change the appointed times and law. The Kedoshim will be handed over to him for a time, times, and half a time. So how did he try to change the law? Well, he outlawed the Sabbath. He outlawed all the Jewish practices of all of the feast days. And in particular, he even slaughtered mothers who were going to circumcise their babies. If they circumcised their baby boys, they were dead. There was also something going on. They would reverse their circumcision by surgery. They would become the uncircumcised. So they would have the foreskin of an animal sewed back on so that they were now not circumcised. Disgusting, right? But that was what happened. Daniel 8:24. Now, toward the end of their reign, when the measure of transgressions is completed, the stern-faced king, the master of intrigue, this is Antiochus, will arise. He will cause extraordinary devastation. He will destroy the powerful and the holy people. Remember, he's attacking the holy people. He's after them. He will cause deceit to prosper. He will consider himself superior. He will even stand up against the Prince of Princes, yet he will be broken, but not by human hands. So now that brings us, with our backstory, back to Daniel 10. In the 3rd year of King Cyrus of Persia, a message was revealed to Daniel, whose name was called Belshazzar. The oracle was true. It concerns a great war, and he understood the message and gained insight through a vision. In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning 3 whole weeks. I ate no rich food, nor did meat or wine enter my mouth, nor did I anoint myself with oil until the end of the 3 weeks. So he has been fasting. Then he has the vision, which we already talked about, seeing the Son of God dressed in white linen and a gold sash. That's in Daniel 10, 5 to 8. And then Daniel 10, 10 to 12, the angel woke him up. He had seen him. He fell over as if dead. He couldn't even stand in the presence of this angel. And then the angel was coming to wake him up and to explain things to him. This same angel had protected him with this incident with Darius the Mede. Daniel 10, 19. Even as he spoke to me, I was strengthened. And I said, let my Lord speak. You've strengthened me. Then the angel said, do you understand why I've come to you? Now I must return to fight against the prince of Persia. When I go, behold, the prince of Greece will come first. First, I tell you what is recorded in the writing of truth. No one strengthened me against these things, except Michael, your prince. In the 1st year of Darius the Mede, I took my stand to support and protect him. Now we go back to Daniel 11, and we see it talks about the 3 more kings that will arise after Cyrus, and that brings us to Xerxes I. In Daniel 11, we talk about Xerxes I, and it says, he's the 4th one. He will be far richer than all. When he becomes powerful through his wealth, he will stir everyone against the realm of Greece. So here's the story about that. The oldest son of Darius had a birth order claim. He was supposed to inherit the throne. However, Spartan law declared that the oldest son born during the king's reign would be the new king. Well, that was Xerxes I. He was the oldest one born during Darius's kingship. So he gained the throne because of his wealth, not because of his birth order. See what Daniel said? When he becomes powerful through his wealth, he will stir up everyone against the realm of Greece. So even that detail, Daniel had that right. It says he refused his father's title, which was called King of Babylon. Instead, he took the title of King of Persia and Media. He then built a palace that was twice the size of his father's, and he was extremely well known for his failed invasion of Greece. That was 480 BC. He ended up being assassinated. So that's Xerxes, nice old guy. He was the one in the vision of the rams and the goats. So we take a look at the slide on the Greek Empire and the Medo-Persian Empire, and we'll see that the Medo-Persian Empire is on the east side of that slide. It's to the right. And Jerusalem is the little section that's kind of going between the big land and the other part of the land. We see the left and the right. You can see that part. But then there's this little sliver of land that goes down past the Mediterranean Sea. And I don't know if you can see that. That little strip of land, that's Israel. So Israel is a major trade route. Everybody's after Israel, because if they can get that trade route, they can be more prosperous, right? But Israel stands in the way. So we have the kingdoms to the right of the slide, to the left of the slide, going down the little strip, and below that is Egypt. So what we're talking about is the battle now between Egypt, which is below Israel, and Syria, which is past Israel to the north. Alrighty, that's what we're going to be talking about next. Daniel 8, 3 and 4. A mighty king will arise, Alexander the Great. He will rule with great authority, do as he pleases. As soon as he has arisen, his kingdom will be broken up and distributed to the four winds of heaven, not to his descendants. Okay? So we look at the history. 323 BC. 32 years old, Alexander the Great dies. Some said that it was from toxic water that he drank from the river Styx. Others say he had malaria. Others say it was heavy drinking or that his wine was poisoned. Whatever it was, he was dying at a very young age. So he gave his signet ring to Perdiccas, and he ended up ruling until he was assassinated in 321. The heirs to the throne were Alexander IV and Philip III. They were murdered, so the kingdom never went to his descendants, right? The kingdom broke into the four empires, and these were the four generals. Did Daniel get it right? 100% right. The kingdom will be broken up and distributed, but not to the descendants. Daniel saw that. Now we look at the next slide. So in the green area, which is kind of to the left, upper left, that's Antigonide. It's not a very big empire. Then the brown area to the right of that is Attilid. That's not a very big area. Then we have the blue area, which is below the Mediterranean Sea. That's the Ptolemaic, that's Egypt. And then to the right, the yellowish kind of area, that's the Seleucid Empire. Pretty big compared to the others. When you say, well, this was divided up into four, these were not four equal parts. Not at all. And so this hotshot Antiochus had the big empire. Now, the king of the south, Daniel refers to him. Who would that be? If you look at that picture, wouldn't that be Egypt, right? King of the south. It says, the king of the south will become strong. One of his commanders will become even stronger than he, and he will rule a greater kingdom than his. So what do we know in history? The kingdom of Egypt was spread considerably by Ptolemaeus Lagos. This is 366 to 283 BC. He was one of Alexander's captains. Then, at Alexander's death in 323, this fellow seized control of Egypt. And this is recorded in the book of Maccabees, first book. Ptolemaeus I is the king of the south that Daniel is talking about. It refers to Egypt. It's the southernmost area of that, at that time, Greek Empire. And then Daniel refers to someone called the king of the north. So who would that be? Remember what the map showed. You've got Egypt down below. Who could be the kingdom of the north? Well, let's take a look at it. We have south of the Mediterranean, and we have north of the Mediterranean. North of the Mediterranean is the Black Sea. You can see that water area. And the south is the Mediterranean, much bigger. Okay? So we have to keep that in mind in terms of prophecy. Ezekiel 38, 1-8 says, Son of man, set your face toward Gog of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. Prophesy against him and say, Behold, I am against you, Gog, chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, Persia, Cush and Put, Gomer, and the house of Togarmah from the extreme north. Okay, now we know who the north is. Scripture defines it. In the latter years you will come against the land that has been brought back from the sword and regathered from many people on the mountains of Israel, which has been a continual waste. Thus, says Adonai Elohim, it will come to pass in that day that you will devise an evil plan. You will say, I will come up against the people gathered from the nations who live in the center of the world. Who lives in the center of the world as far as God is concerned? Israel is the center of the world. So they're going to gather from the nations, and they're going to be watching the center of the world. Ezekiel 32:26 tells us, Meshach Tubal is there and all her throng, all of them uncircumcised, slain by the sword, though they spread terror in the land. So these are terrorists against the beautiful land. Gog is this demonic spirit. That's what it says in there, the chief prince. You see it in Ezekiel 38. Gog, the chief prince. That's a demonic spirit ruling over the land of Meshach and Tubal, also called the land of Magog. They are to the extreme north. Israel is in the center. Egypt is in the south. This is about end-time prophecy, about the north, and about Israel being the center of the world. Okay, our next slide shows us the extreme north. If you look up at the very top, you see Black Sea. Follow from the B in Black Sea and go straight down to the orange square and you see Magog. Okay? Now you know what we're talking about. This is the extreme north. If you keep going south, you're going to land on that little strip of land called Israel. Daniel 11, verse 6. After some years, they will form an alliance. He's talking about this war. The daughter of the king of the south. Who is the daughter? Her name is Bernice. The daughter of the king of the south. Who's that? Ptolemy II of Egypt. Will approach the king of the north. The daughter does. The daughter will approach the king of the north. That's Antiochus II of Syria. And make an agreement. So Bernice makes an agreement and says she will not retain her position of power. Well, guess what? This really happened. We check in the history, we find out that Antiochus divorced her. So Daniel was right. Nor will his strength endure, this king that divorced her. Instead, she will be given up together with her escort, her father, and the one who supported her in those times. So what does the history tell us? This alliance that he's referring to took place 70 years after Alexander's death. The daughter of the king of the south refers to Berenice. The daughter of Ptolemaeus II, Philadelphus of Egypt, in 253 BCE, he ends this war with Antiochus II, Theos, who's king of Syria, king of the north. Ptolemaeus gave Bernice to Antiochus II as a peace offering. Here, you can have this woman. How would you like to be a peace offering? To marry Bernice, Antiochus divorced his wife, Laodice, and disinherited her own son, Seleucus, and then the marriage to Bernice failed. Antiochus divorced her. After Ptolemaeus' death in 247 BC, Antiochus took back his former wife, Laodice. She, Laodice, then poisoned her husband, getting back at him for having taken another wife. She poisoned Antiochus, and then she had Bernice and the son murdered. So she raised her son, Seleucus Callinicus, in the Syrian throne. Family drama, right? Lots of family drama. It is said that Ptolemaeus II was instrumental in the creation of the Septuagint Bible. Did you know that? This particular king, Ptolemaeus II of Egypt, is the one who decided that we should have a Bible in Greek. And he's the one who took care of that. Remember, Greek was the worldwide language. Everybody spoke it. So he said, let's put the Bible in Greek. Okay, so now we know who the king of the north is, king of the south is, and now we've got this lady named Bernice. Daniel's right on everything. Okay, now we look at verse 7 to 8. It says, another shoot from her roots, Bernice's brother, will arise in his place. And arise in a place of the king, right? He will come against the army of the king of the north. Who'd we determine that was? That's Seleucus II of Syria. And he will enter his fortress. He will fight against them and prevail. He will carry off their gods into captivity to Egypt, along with their metal images and precious articles of silver and gold. For a few years, he will stay away from the king of the north. Did Daniel get it right? Let's look at history. Bernice's brother, Ptolemaeus III, was the son and the successor of Ptolemaeus II. In 246 BCE, he avenged his sister's death by launching an army attack against the Syrian king, Seleucus II. In 241 BCE, Ptolemaeus III prevailed, capturing the stronghold of Seleucia, which is recorded in the book of Maccabees. He brought home 1,500 talents of silver. Did Daniel say that? Carry off the precious articles of silver. He brought home 1,500 talents of silver, about 1/10 of his annual income. He recovered Egyptian works of art that were stolen when the Persians had conquered Egypt, and he was now titled the benefactor because he stole back the Egyptian gods that were taken 300 years earlier. What did Daniel say? He will carry off their gods. How did Daniel get all this information? Down to the nth degree, everything. Daniel 11, 9, and 10. Now it's about the king of the north and the king of the south and his sons. So let's see what the history says, and then we'll read what the verse says. The king of the south, Ptolemaeus III, returned home from his successful battle to deal with internal problems in Egypt. The king of the north, that's near the Black Sea, Seleucus II, recovered northern Syria and some provinces of Iran. His sons were Seleucus III and Antiochus III the Great, who tried to regain land lost in the previous battles. Seleucus III was assassinated within 3 years of taking the throne, but his brother Antiochus III managed to expand the kingdom considerably. So what does Daniel say about this? The king of the north will invade the realm of the king of the south. He will retreat to his own land. His sons will prepare for war and assemble a great army, which will advance and overflow and sweep through like a flood and carry the battle as far as his fortress. Did it happen the way he said? Absolutely, all the way through. Now we're into the fourth war between Egypt and Syria. Again, king of the south, king of the north. It says the king of the south will become arrogant, Daniel says. He will slaughter thousands and thousands and still will not prevail. Is it true? Yes. Ptolemaeus IV, which means he's the lover of his father. His nickname was Philopator. He was indignant about the conquest of Antiochus III. He brought together an army of 70,000 men, 5,000 horses, 73 elephants, and against the army of Antiochus III, which had 62,000 men, 6,000 horses, and 102 elephants. Ptolemaeus IV also built the largest human-powered vessel ever. In around 217 BCE, he gained back Upper Egypt. He grew haughty. He went into the temple of God at Jerusalem, and in defiance of the law, he entered the most holy place. Later, Upper Egypt protested this extreme loss of lives, and they seceded from Egypt. So what did Daniel say about it? The king of the south, enraged, will march out and fight against the king of the north, who will muster up a massive army. Did Daniel get it right? Yes. But the army will be defeated. Yes, it was. When the army is carried off, the heart of the king of the south will become arrogant and will slaughter thousands and thousands. Yet he will not prevail. Daniel was right on. Fifth Syrian War. These wars just keep on going. Daniel 11, again, king of the north, and then it says there's an interval of some years, and then he will advance a great army. Okay, let's see what happened. Ptolemaeus IV reigned from 221 to 204 BCE. The Ptolemaic dynasty declined under his reign. His son, Ptolemaeus V Epiphanes, took the throne at 5 years old. I can't even imagine. With the aid of a series of regents. While the kingdom was in a weak state, Antiochus III attacked, regained control over Syria, which is that strip of land in Israel, in 198 BCE. Antiochus III surprised and overcame strongholds in Syria and Samaria. He suffered a major setback in the Gaza Strip. He prevailed at Panaeus on the Jordan in 198 BCE, and thus Judea passed to the Seleucid dynasty. Eventually, Upper and Lower Egypt went to war against each other. So what does Daniel say about it? The king of the north will raise up another army, one greater than the first. After an interval of some years, he will advance this great army with abundant supplies. In those times, many will rise up against the king of the south. That's Egypt. The lawless sons among your own people will raise themselves up in order to confirm the vision, but they will stumble. Then the king of the north will come, build a siege camp, and capture a well-fortified city, that is, Syria. The forces of the south will not prevail. Not even their select troops will have strength to prevail. There's more wars. They go until we get to the sixth one. So Daniel 11, 16 to 18. But the invader will do as he pleases, and no one will be able to stand against him. He will take his stand in the beautiful land, Israel, and its devastation is in his hand. His intention will be to come with the strength of the entire kingdom. He will reach an agreement with him. He will give him a daughter in marriage in order to destroy the kingdom. Look at the detail Daniel has. He will give him a daughter in marriage to destroy the kingdom, but his plans will not succeed. And then he will turn his attention to the coastlands and capture many. So how did that play out in history? Well, the Romans now decided to interfere because they wanted a piece of the action. They liked that strip of land called Israel. They liked that beautiful land. So they interfered. They demanded that Antiochus surrender his conquests. He didn't want to surrender. Not daring, though, to stand against Rome, he compromised. He came up with a reconciliation treaty. What was it? He gave his daughter in marriage. Is that what Daniel said? Absolutely. He gave his daughter in marriage. It was Cleopatra the First. And her dowry was given, and it was the revenue for the conquered provinces. So the daughter and the money were weighed against each other. In exchange, he maintained the possession of Syria. At that time, the king was 16 years old. Cleopatra was 10. 10. They married 2 years later. She was now 12, and he was 18. Cleopatra then teamed up with her father's enemy to overthrow him. Antiochus went on to raid the remaining coastal strongholds. Daniel got it right. He will turn his attention to the coastlands and capture many. Accurate, accurate, accurate. Daniel 11, 18 to 19. He says, a commander will put an end to his insolence and pay him back for his insolence. He will then turn his face toward the strongholds of his own land. He will stumble and fall, not to be found again. And how did that happen? 192 BCE. Antiochus I attacked Greece. They had a 4-year battle, but his armies were completely routed by the Romans. They forced him, the Romans, forced him to give back all of Europe and to pay a heavy tribute to Rome. So Rome won in that process. To raise the revenues for the tribute, he went back to the land and he plundered a temple of Jupiter. which was in Persia, in 187 BCE. His own people were outraged, came against him, and killed him. So what does it say? Daniel says, the commander will put an end to his insolence and pay him back, right? Then it says he will stumble and fall, never to be found again. That's what happened. Daniel got it right again. Every single verse in Daniel 11 is another historical event, and they're all accurate. Verse 20 to 21, in his place will arise Antiochus III. He will dispatch a tax collector, this person was named Heliodorus, to extract tribute for royal glory. Within a few days he will be destroyed, but not in anger, not in battle. What happened is he dropped dead after he saw an apparition. That's how he died. Then in this place will arise a despicable person, Antiochus IV, on whom royal honor has not been conferred. Antiochus IV did not deserve and did not earn this throne. He will come in a time of tranquility and seize the kingdom through intrigue, through trickery. So this is what happened. The son of Antiochus III, Seleucus IV, took the throne in 187 BCE. To raise a heavy war indemnity, which was required by Rome, he sent his trusted minister, Heliodorus, the tax collector, to Jerusalem to seize the treasury that was stored in Jerusalem temple. He was going to go for the gold. 2 Maccabees 3 tells us the story. It says that Heliodorus was miraculously prevented from getting into the treasury because an apparition stood right in front of him. It was a horse and a rider charging toward him. He dropped dead from the fear of it. The priests and the temple began to pray for him, and Heliodorus was resurrected from the dead. The Jewish Virtual Library says this: forced to return empty-handed to Seleucus, he was eventually responsible for the assassination of the king. Seleucus IV was succeeded by his younger brother Antiochus IV Epiphanes. So the true heir to the throne was the older brother Demetrius, but he was being held hostage in Rome. Antiochus IV seized the throne. Daniel got it right again. He seized the kingdom. He was not entitled to it. All of the facts, they're all in history. And Daniel was talking about something that was going to happen in 175 to 165 BCE. We're talking, what, 500 years from his lifetime? Daniel 11, 22 and 23, he says, the armies will be utterly swept away from before him and will be broken, as well as the leader of the covenant. He's talking about a leader of the covenant. We've got to find out who that is. After an alliance is made with him, the leader of the covenant, he will act deceitfully. He will rise to power with a small force. So who was this leader of the covenant? His name was Onias III. He was the high priest in the Jerusalem temple. He was assassinated. The events that concern Antiochus IV Epiphanes are actually written in the book of the Maccabees and another one called the Scroll of Antiochus. And there's another one called the Scroll of the Hasmoneans. There's plenty of record about this. We will look more about these books as we continue when we get through the rest of Daniel 11. So let's look at our summary. These are 6 wars we just went through. Daniel had every fact, every single detail in that chapter. Every detail. It can be found in history. So we have the Syrian Wars, which is a series of 6 wars between the Seleucid Empire, which was that great big one at the top of the picture, and the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt, down below Israel. And they continued this battle, and guess who got all the flack on that? Israel was in the middle. So they're having these armies going in and out of there. The successor to Alexander the Great's empire during the 3rd and the 2nd century was, the region was called Chile, Syria. One of these few avenues that went into Egypt, which is, of course, that trade route in Israel. These conflicts drained the material and the manpower of both parties. It led to their eventual destruction. That's how Rome conquered them. They had used up all their resources, their military resources, their financial resources. They had spent it all. Rome came in and took over. So we have our first Syrian War in 274, second one in 260, third Syrian War 246, fourth Syrian War 219, fifth Syrian War 202, sixth Syrian War in 170. This is the period with Antiochus IV. He was reigning from 175 to 164. He was involved in the final war. Daniel got it right. Okay, so Daniel 7:6, he says that he saw that leopard, remember, with the 4 wings like a bird, and the beast had 4 heads. In Daniel 8, he says, behold, I'm going to inform you what will happen in the time of wrath. For the vision pertains to the appointed time of the end. The ram that you saw with 2 horns stands for the kings of Media and Persia. The buck, the male goat, is the king of Greece. The large horn between his eyes is the first king. The 4 horns that replace the one broken represent 4 kingdoms arising from this nation, but not with its power. Now, toward the end of their reign, when the measure of transgressions is completed, a stern-faced king, a master of intrigue, will arise. So let's look at Zechariah 2, see if there's any mention of this. It's verse 1 to 4. I lifted up my eyes, and behold, I saw 4 horns. I said to the angel speaking to me, what are these? He said, these are the horns that have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. Then Adonai showed me 4 craftsmen, and I said, what are these coming to do? He answered, these are the horns that scattered Judah, so no one could raise their head. But the craftsmen have come to frighten them, to cast down the horns of the nations that have lifted up their horn against the land of Judah, to scatter it. So we see God comes to the rescue. He comes to the rescue of his beautiful land. He goes on in verse 5 to 11. I lifted up my eyes, and behold, I saw a man with a measuring line in his hand. I asked, where are you going? He answered me, to measure Jerusalem, to see how wide and how long it is. And then, behold, the angel speaking with me left, and another angel went out to meet him, saying, run, speak to this young man, saying, Jerusalem will be inhabited as a village without walls, because of the great number of men and livestock in it. For I, it is a declaration of Adonai, will be a wall of fire around it. I will be the glory inside it. Oi, oi, flee from the land of the north. What's that? Near the Black Sea, Gog and Magog. It is a declaration of Adonai, because I scatter you like the 4 winds of heaven. It is a declaration of Adonai. Oi, Zion, escape, you who are living with the daughter of Babylon. Babylon is a problem for all of us. The roots of Babylon are still with us. Zechariah 2, 14 to 16 says, sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for behold, I am coming. I will live among you. It's a declaration of Adonai. In that day, many nations will join themselves to Adonai. They will be my people, and I will dwell among them. Then you will know that Adonai Tsavuot has sent me to you. Adonai will inherit Judah as his portion in the Holy Land, and will once again choose Jerusalem. Be silent before Adonai, all flesh, for he has aroused himself from his holy dwelling. So what is our message from all of that? God will choose Jerusalem again. And did that not begin to happen in May 1948? Israel, through all of these catastrophes, was rebirthed as a nation. The Hebrew language, which was lost, is now spoken again. He keeps his promises. His word is true. It's absolutely faithful. But he told Jerusalem, he told his people, if you disobey me and you don't keep my commandments and you continue to do that, not only will you have the punishment of the 70 years of exile, but it will keep on going 70 times 7, 70 times 7. He says that in Leviticus 26. I will multiply these problems. So even after the Daniel prophecy has been given, and he's told 77s are determined for the people and the land to end the sin, to finish the transgressions, etc. He makes this long list. We found out in our teaching earlier, that brings us to the time of the Gentiles. And the Gentiles now run with the gospel. They run with the teachings. And they bring everybody to the God of Israel. And so Israel and all their glory is suddenly, they're not there. But God has brought them back, May 1948. It was a fulfillment of a prophecy in Ezekiel. And to the very day, Ezekiel was told to lay on one side for so many days and lay on the other side for so many days. When you add it all up, you got to 1948. And at the 70th year, Trump declared Jerusalem will become the place of the embassy. We are watching it unfold. The beautiful land is the center of all these prophecies. The beautiful land. We need to keep our eyes on Israel to understand what we're studying. Let's pray. Father, we thank you and we praise you that your word is true and trustworthy. It will happen exactly as you have said it. Not one thing will drop to the ground. Everything will be accomplished exactly as you said it. Help us as your people to follow you, listen to your voice, follow your spirit, walk in your commandments, and be the faithful who can be a light for those who are in darkness. We thank you and we praise you in Yeshua's name. Amen.